Hey folks, so tonight I'm going to take a look at this old cookbook that I found. I'm not even sure where this comes from. I mean, some family member had this, but I don't know for sure who. It says 1937-38, a PTA Association cookbook. But I was going to talk about a cookbook because it's sort of heading into holiday season and cooking and food and getting together with people and eating a big meal and a special meal is kind of what we're heading into in this time of year. Of course, the next holiday coming up is Thanksgiving here in the States. And a lot of times people say you really shouldn't talk about, controversial, it may not be quite the right word, subjects in ASMR videos, but I think if we're going to talk about Thanksgiving at all, you kind of don't have a choice but to talk about some of the controversy and mythology around it. I noticed in this cookbook there's a lot of baked goods and of course that's another thing around holidays. It's a lot of treats, but there's a lot of full meals and casseroles and other things too. And this appears to be a Christmas related book. Send Christmas greetings to you today. Christmas cheer for every day this coming year and all the years allotted thee. May God bless, may the whole world do its part, that only happiness come to thy heart. It's just our way of trying to say Merry Christmas from our PTA. And I noticed that somebody has jotted down a few recipes of cookies they seem to be interested in. So, don't exactly know why those were picked out. I also noticed that there's a place in this cookbook for you to add your own recipes, and you'll find there's quite a few in here that were added. Like these were clipped out, looks like of a magazine or a newspaper. They added Brazilian squash, French fried eggplant, and baked beans. And I'm not much of a cook. I've, maybe learned a little bit with my wife, and we're kind of funny because she's going to do it her way, and she can glance at a recipe and then immediately knows what she wants to do with it, or how she wants to do it, or prep it, and all the prep that's involved. And whereas I'm the one who has to pretty much follow step by step whatever instructions there are, measuring and timings and prep and everything else. And I'm not quite as bad as I used to be that way. I mean, sometimes I'll do a little adjustment, particularly with seasonings. But I'm still the step by step, I guess, paint by number cook in that regard. Lots of dessert recipes, puddings. See, here's some more. Tutti Frutti ice cream. Coffee tapioca cream. That sounds good. mocha tarts. But getting back to Thanksgiving, here our tradition nowadays is, and a lot of people are not doing this 100% anymore, but the tradition here is kind of a big turkey for Thanksgiving at the head of the table, and sweet potatoes, a common dish, side dish, and of course potatoes as well, and various veggies. And I guess the history of that tradition mostly goes back to the 19th century. There was a lot of concern, I think, trying to unite the country around something. There was a sort of a push to make Thanksgiving a national holiday in the early 19th century. And in that version, turkey was the main dish. And Thanksgivings were pretty common. I mean, the idea of celebrating a harvest was a pretty standard thing, and wasn't something unique to a certain event. And the mythology that we have here in the U.S. is this idea of the first Thanksgiving. Was sort of marked this thing that people did, and that would be how we do it forever. But it didn't really happen that way. We created this mythology around it kind of after the fact, of tying back to this Thanksgiving of the Plymouth settlers, who now we call pilgrims. And it was in the mid-19th century, President Abraham Lincoln made Thanksgiving a formal holiday, or an official holiday. And by that time, the turkey idea had kind of started, and then it really kind of laid itself in over the next, period. Until now, that's kind of the way we do Thanksgiving, or have been doing it anyway, for the most part. But that mythology around connecting it back to this Plymouth Pilgrim event was kind of done after the fact. There was a harvest celebration that occurred in I think it's 1621 with the Pilgrims. And we sort of connected that back to our modern Thanksgiving later. And this, at that Thanksgiving, it was a 3-day thanks organized by the Pilgrims, because it was their first successful harvest. And of course, the reason they had a successful harvest was because the Native Americans of that region had helped them learn how to hunt and grow the local crops. And these were the Wampanoag Native Americans. And had those Native Americans not helped those Pilgrim settlers, they likely wouldn't have survived. But that Thanksgiving event that in the mythology we connect to modern Thanksgiving was a 3-day event that was to celebrate the fact that they had a successful harvest. And there's actually not a lot of history written about that. So it's a lot of uncertainty around how that really went and what was the relationship like with the Native Americans at that time. We know they had on and off treaties. It's not clear that it's the sort of perfect, peaceful Thanksgiving that we kind of have in the mythology. We know that, according to the writings at least, the Native Americans brought some venison, killed some deer, and served that or offered that. And we know the Pilgrims had been fowling, they call it, so they were hunting. And they don't specify what they caught, but what they hunted. But most experts say it was most likely duck and geese. It might have been wild turkey too, but it wouldn't have been the featured dish. And so if you think about the food that would have been served at that meal, it probably wasn't turkey. It was certainly venison, and it was also probably shellfish. So because of the region, lobsters were plentiful, so it very well might have been lobsters and mussels, as well as duck and geese. So those might have been the meats served, and maybe turkey too. But certainly all those other meats turkey wouldn't have been the featured meat. And, at that time, for our other sort of modern holiday traditions, in terms of the side dishes, they wouldn't have had potatoes. They hadn't really made it to the colonies yet, so they might have had turnips, but probably not potatoes. And they, at that period, they did do stuffing. That was a common thing to do with birds, but it wouldn't have been with bread. In that period, they would have stuffed mostly with meat and maybe some vegetables. I'm sorry, not meat, with nuts. They would have stuffed the bird with nuts and vegetables. And they wouldn't have had cranberry sauce either. That's something that wasn't really around at that time. Now, while they wouldn't have had pumpkin pie, they might have had some kind of a pumpkin dish or a pumpkin dessert. There was talk of some kind of a pumpkin treat dessert type dish made with cream and butter, and they might have done that to make kind of a custard with pumpkin. And they wouldn't have had sweet potato either. That's not something that would have been available at that time in the States. So probably a various assortment of meat, including shellfish, side dishes of things like turnips, and maybe some kind of a dessert type dish of some kind of a custard. And there is a lot of uncertainty about all that stuff because a lot of it is not, 100% documented and no one knows for sure. And another reason why turkeys later became popular for for these meals is because turkeys were very plentiful. In the 19th century. And they, one turkey would serve quite a few people, so it very well might have been may have been one of the reasons to start having turkey as the traditional meal for these Thanksgivings. And for the most part, the experts say Thanksgiving would have been something a little earlier in the season. It wouldn't have been probably late November, especially in a place like Plymouth, and pretty late, deep into the winter time for that. So probably would have been, closer to Halloween time or late summer, kind of the end of the harvest. And like I said before, I mean, this idea of having harvest festivals and giving thanks for a good harvest was very common long before Thanksgiving was an official thing. And another reason why there's how we know the mythology of the sort of this idea of it being the first Thanksgiving is that nobody really chronicled that event as being anything that significant. So a lot of people just sort of see that as another harvest festival that happened to then have this mythology built up around it and connect it to sort of a modern Thanksgiving with turkey and sweet potatoes and other things. So as we look at this cookbook, we have a lot of cookies, a lot of other treats in this book. I mean, so many cookies, this page after page. Seems like you can spend quite a while. And I was noticing that, this cookbook expects you to kind of know what to do. It doesn't have a lot of, well, I will say it varies from recipe to recipe, but many of the recipes don't say a lot about how to prepare or how to, cook the thing. It just lists sort of the ingredients and then sort of assumes you're going to know what to do with that. So for some of these, it's not going to work for me. I need a little more help. But, many of them do say what to do, but I notice some of them don't. They just kind of have the ingredients, and you sort of would know. They assume you know what to do. So it's not for me, or it's not written for me, I should say. But and here's a lot of here's some main dishes. I think is there a table of contents? I don't even remember. Oh yeah, here we go. Beverages, breads, coffee, meats and vegetables, salads, Friday specials, cookies, cakes, frostings and fillings, puddings and desserts, pies, candy and confections, and sandwiches at the end. Well, that's not quite the end. Marmalades, relishes, pickles, and sauces, church and club affairs, and for the day when someone's ill, so I guess there's some remedy type meals or recipes, and some helpful hints. Now that might be what I need, is some of those helpful hints. Now since this is PTA, I assume these beverages are not alcoholic, which makes sense. Here's a mint julep, which has lemons, 5 lemons, that's a lot of lemons, a bunch of fresh mint, 2/3 cup water, and 3 bottles of ginger ale, and 1 2/3 cup sugar. Squeeze the juice from the lemons, add leaves from the mint, sugar, and water. Let stand 30 minutes. Add a large piece of ice and ginger ale. Serve in small glasses. Now I haven't actually tried any of the recipes in here yet. Here's breads and cakes and donuts. And Barker House rolls. So there's a funny story in our family about Barker House rolls. And I never figured out whether Barker House rolls are sort of low class or high class. I have a feeling they're kind of a blue collar thing, but there's a story that's not clear about. Someone used Barker House rolls as though it was kind of an insult, but I never did figure out what the insult meant. I'm not sure what was implied from Barker House rolls. German coffee cake. You know, a lot of people love German coffee cake. That's not one of my favorite things, but what do they have in this one? They have 2 cups of flour, baking powder, salt, nutmeg, sugar, shortening, eggs, and a cup of milk and a teaspoon of cinnamon. Well, that doesn't sound... I guess that coffee cake is a lot different than German cake. I was probably thinking of something else. This sounds pretty much like regular old coffee cake. Measure dry ingredients, sift together 3 times. Work in the shortening, add beaten eggs and milk, stir until smooth. Bake in a moderate oven. Interesting language. 350 degrees for 30 minutes. Oh, and here's the top mixture. Okay, well that's, I guess, the part that makes it the German cake style. Shortening, brown sugar, flour, cinnamon, salt, and nut meats. I don't know if nut meats is an ingredient that's easy to get these days. I guess is that kind of like a mincemeat sort of thing? I don't know. There's another coffee cake recipe. There's an interesting one. Sounds a little carby. Mashed potato donuts. Cup of mashed potatoes, 1 cup sugar, melted butter, eggs, milk, flour, baking powder, salt, a little nutmeg, and vanilla. Add sugar to hot potatoes, then melted butter with the beaten eggs, milk, flour, salt, and baking powder sifted together, flavoring with and nutmeg. Handle the dough as little as possible if you want fluffy donuts. Makes 2 dozen. In the additional recipes, someone has clipped out a recipe called Love Letters. Roll baking powder biscuit dough to quarter inch thickness. Cut in 3-inch squares. Spread with melted butter or margarine. Place 1 teaspoon currant jelly on each square. Fold corners toward center. Bake in a hot oven, 425 Fahrenheit, for 15 minutes. Serve hot. Makes 12. Here's the meat section. Yorkshire pudding. Roasted rabbit. You don't see people getting rabbit too often anymore. Veal birds. I think I'm going to move past the meat section a little bit. I still have meat sometimes, but I mostly don't. Creamed hamburger, you know, that was a thing in my family. Never something I was a big fan of. Hamburger, steak, sliced onion, milk, flour, salt and pepper to taste. All these recipes call for shortening. Or I shouldn't say all, but many of these recipes call for shortening. I don't think we use shortening as much as people used to. Baked beans. So here you cook 2 pounds of navy beans in salted water until tender. Drain and add the following: ketchup, Caro syrup, salt and pepper to taste. And then you can put bacon strips across the top and bake in a moderate oven until bacon is crisp. added these extra recipes. Brazilian squash. I think I mentioned these before. French fried eggplant. That sounds interesting. I guess it's kind of like eggplant parmesan or breaded eggplant. But not the parmesan part, not the parmesan part. And then another recipe for baked beans. Oh, and a bunch more recipes clipped in from, looks like from a magazine of some sort. Beef stew, sausage patties, some others. So now we're into salads. Your dinner is as good as your salad. Let onion atoms lurk within the bowl, and half suspecting animate the whole. Cute. So I always thought these gelatine salads were interesting. Is that really a salad? Seems like that's a jello. It's more like a dessert. Here's a fruit salad. Green goddess salad. French dressing, anchovy fillets, green onions, parsley, tarragon, clove, garlic, cayenne, 1 cup mayonnaise. It sort of sounds awful, but it might actually be pretty good. Roquefort cheese. They clipped out Roquefort cheese and onion dressing and added that in. And I guess this is the Friday always comes. So I guess this is the fish day. This era. It's not all fish recipes, but it looks like a lot of fish recipes. Tea cookies. Wisps, dainty tea cookies. I mean, so many cookie recipes in this book. I think a couple of these coming up. Afternoon tea cakes. Peanut butter cookies, those are always good. Yeah, I think a couple of these cookies were ones that were marked. This one's Christmas. Cookies for Christmas. Christmas tree cookies, Santa Claus cookies, Christmas brownies. So I think so they marked this page. Oh yeah, they put an X on this, Christmas surprises. So that has powdered sugar, butter, eggs, flour, baking powder, pecan meats, chopped dates, chopped orange peel, chopped lemon peel, chopped citrons, chopped candied pineapple. I don't know, maybe you can find all that stuff at Trader Joe's. Beat eggs until light, add sugar and beat until foamy. Sift flour and baking powder and then add fruits sprinkled with flour. Add melted butter last. Mix, spread to half-inch thickness on well-buttered shallow baking pan. Bake in slow oven 45 minutes. When cool, cut into squares and roll in powdered sugar coconut. Yeah, I've had the hardest time. That dog barking, I don't know if you can hear that. It's reminded me of, I had the hardest time recording lately. There's just been so much noise in the neighborhood. Look how many cookie recipes there are. So many. I'm sure they're all delicious, but that's a lot of cookies. And here are chocolate recipes. So I guess, is that an advertisement or a separate book? Chocolate fudge squares. Yeah, I guess that's a buy that recipe for 10 cents, or buy the whole book maybe for 10 cents. Not sure. Post Toasties macaroons. What comes after cookies? Well, of course, cakes. So we've got all kinds of cakes as well. Apple, Dutch apple, banana cake. There's a birthday cake. That's my wife's favorite. Easy to make 1-egg cake. That might be up my alley, although baking is not my thing. I don't know if I've ever baked anything correctly. Or achieved a good result, I should say. Peanut brittle cake. Lebkuchen. Says Christmas cake. There's a fruit cake, gumdrop fruit cake. There's a favorite fruit cake. Boy, look at all those ingredients. Raisins, currants, walnut, pecans, citron, candied lemon peel, candied orange peel, dates, brandy. That's nobody seems to like fruitcakes, but that's a lot of ingredients. That's a kind of expensive ingredients too. Mashed potato cake, sour cream cake. I bet that's good. Poppy seed cake. How many more cakes do we have? Some additional recipes, extra cakes, an angel cake. And this one's a whole section on just angel and sponge cakes. Well, I think I might wrap this video up at this part and see what else we can find here. Anything interesting? I guess that's an advertisement for another cake. Or is it just another recipe? I guess it's a little bit of both. And then this is a section on frostings. Seven-minute icing. Another sunshine 7-minute icing. Made with orange juice. Oh, orange juice may be substituted for the water. Well, I may have to grab one of these recipes and try it out. Here, this is puddings and looks like puddings and other desserts. Well, I think we'll wrap up there for now. this video relaxing. Maybe we can wrap up the rest of this cookbook another time. Got a whole bunch of cookbooks, and not all of them are this old though. And again, I don't even know where this one came from for sure. But like I said, I hope you found this video relaxing, and I hope you have a good holiday. If you enjoyed the video, you can like and subscribe. If you're already subscribed, thank you, and most importantly, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.